Hey guys, what's going on? Laying back for another Netflix review, and today I'm going to be talking about Paradise. Paradise is a German sci-fi thriller that tells the story of Max Thoma, an employee of the Aeon Corporation, which extracts years from people's lives to give to others so that they can proceed to live longer. His life is turned upside down when his apartment explodes, and his wife Elena is forced to give 40 years of her life as payment for the damages. Suspecting something wrong, Max proceeds to investigate the very company he works for and decides to take revenge on them. His findings force him to go on the run with his wife, in the hopes that he'll be able to return his wife to her previous state before they're caught. This was a really fun thriller movie with a lot of interesting messages behind it. It doesn't dive as deep into these messages as it could have, but they still add substance to the story, and the tension and presentation of its concepts make it even more entertaining. Max Thoma is the typical corporate lackey who finds himself forced to make a decision about what really matters to him. There's not much else to him other than this, but his actor does a good job at conveying the emotional turmoil of his situation throughout the movie. He goes from believing in Aeon's cause and scientific endeavors to slowly despising them for their lack of support. He realizes the hard way that he's a cog in the machine, something that even his wife tells him, and it's hard not to sympathize with him when he tries so hard to redeem himself and help his wife get her time back. This movie's story is much more compelling with his wife Elena in the picture. I was worried the movie was going to show her being decrepit and not able to do anything due to her advanced age, and while she does have some complications, I'm happy to say she's much more involved in the story than I thought. Elena starts off having a much different view of the situation than Max. Whereas Max wants justice for her, she simply wants to carry on without wasting what energy she has left to fight the corporation. It's an understandable position that becomes a bit more nuanced over time once Max eventually wins her over. Even when she goes along with Max's plan, she doesn't just agree with everything he does. She opposes some of the extremes that Max gets into and questions his logic at certain times. Some might see this as annoying, but I saw it simply as a reinforcement of the fact that Elena is her own character with her own thoughts, which ties well into the events of the story. And this is what impressed me the most about the movie. It has such an intriguing premise that raises lots of ethical questions surrounding the commodification of time, like who deserves the time, who gets to decide who deserves it, the psychological effects of adding time, and many others. The idea of adding time to one's life and achieving eternal youth sounds like a cool idea, and it certainly is for a movie, but the execution of this idea leaves a lot of complications, and I appreciate the direction the movie took with this concept. It is fully aware of how callous a faceless corporation can be and provides a lot of social critiques in this regard. The movie is a true dystopian experience surrounding ageism and classism, in which the poor are exploited for the benefit of the wealthy. Beneath Aeon's sleek corporate veneer of advertising the well-being of humanity lies the ugly truth that only a select few will truly benefit from its mission, and I love how the movie reinforces this in both its story and its world. The visuals are appealing to look at and fit the tone the movie's going for. There's a clear contrast between the areas where the poor and rich live, but it also expands beyond this and shows more of the outside world, especially as Max and Elena proceed with their own mission. The dark colors, lighting, and the amazing ambient soundtrack add so much to the dread that Max and Elena experience. I love how this movie's able to pull off the science fiction look while still having an element of realism. It looks futuristic, but not so much that it's distracting, and this helps make the time is money concept more believable too. This being said, the concept isn't perfectly executed. While it's nice that it goes the extra mile in some areas like showing protests and the medical process itself, I was disappointed that the movie didn't actually show any low-class citizens being directly exploited, instead focusing on higher-class citizens for some reason. And as good of a job it did in asking important questions and critiquing where it counts, I felt it bit off more than it could chew at times. There are moments where it reaches past the age concept and tries to branch out and connect to other areas like climate change, and it just felt like window dressing to me with how brief these connections were. These gripes don't affect the movie too much once it really gets going with its story though. The mystery Max is wrapped up in builds a lot of anticipation for what follows, and once he gets his plan together, that's when it kicks off into high gear, as it goes from being a slow burn mystery to a fast-paced cat and mouse thriller. Max and Elena have to come up with creative solutions while on the run from Aeon and law enforcement. I like that the movie takes this approach and doesn't have them taking on all the bad guys at once, as it helps with the more grounded atmosphere, and it also makes the moments where they're almost caught even more intense. It is a bit predictable in how it's basically a case of evil corporation versus rebels, and this wouldn't be as bad if it weren't for the Atom Group. I appreciate that the movie expands its world by using them as an opposing force to Aeon, but I found they didn't do much other than kill innocent people, which made it hard for me to support their cause. Similarly, the villain Sophie Tyson, who runs the Aeon Corporation, felt pretty bland to me. She's a generic CEO who only stands out because of her trying to reverse her own age, and there's just not enough in the story to make me despise her that much apart from the whole people good, corporations bad argument. The entire movie feels just a bit cliche and familiar, which definitely isn't a bad thing, as all movies are inspired from something. Honestly, the way it goes about presenting its central concept was more than enough for me to get behind it in the beginning, but there is one thing that soured me on it. and that's the ending. This movie ends in one of the most rushed, vague, and cobbled together sequences that I've ever seen in a movie this year. Everything else that happens before it is good, or at least okay, so I'm not sure why the filmmakers decided to take such a confusing direction in the last 10 minutes of the story. It's not even good sequel bait. But on the whole, the movie still succeeds with how it addresses its main theme regarding mortality. Defying nature and manipulating time to increase lifespan is a complicated subject with many ethical issues, and I'm glad that Max fights so much to redeem himself so that he and Elena can grow old together on their terms. Overall, Paradise is an intriguing sci-fi thriller that is both entertaining and raises interesting questions with its premise. If you like science fiction movies that explore ethical conflicts, you should check this one out. Despite it lacking depth with some elements of its story and concepts, it remains a tense experience thanks to its main characters, atmosphere, and the ethical quandary of its premise. Even though this movie's world is anything but a paradise, I still enjoyed seeing it. What did you think about this movie? Did you appreciate the themes behind its story, or do you think it didn't dive deep enough with them? Let me know in the comments below. Anyways guys, that's going to wrap up my review of Paradise. Thanks for watching this video, I hope you enjoyed it, and as always stay tuned for the next part where next time I review the American rom-com Happiness for Beginners. Bye bye!